Kid Hardy and Michael Ford are coming. Ellen Wilkinson, the red flag, she is humming. We get around not as much as Dominic Cummings, even though he's driving blind. We are the Labour grassroots, where like-minded folk dwell. From countryside to city, it's warm and it's witty, the antidote to Pretty Patel. We are the Labour grassroots, time to raise a racket. The future is as bright as Crispin's red jacket. This is the space where we all go hell for leather, free from all the biased BBC blether. Like track and trace, we're better together, just as Carrie and Meg. Yeah, we got all the people from Inverness, Skegness, Barrow, Inverness, Chester, Leicester, Cirencester, Shrewsbury, Oswald Street, Swansea, Hernackley, Barnsley, Beccles, Nottingham and Eccles. We are the Labour grassroots, time to plant some grass. Where we've always had social distancing between us and the upper class.
We've got a really busy, jam-packed croissant of a show today, and to start the show, we've got our newspaper review, and we've got two special reviewers who've come on to the show early this morning. We've got Maria from Carmarthenshire, who was the parliamentary candidate in Carmarthenshire, but I can't pronounce the full constituency. Maria, could you say it for us?
Carmarthen, Easton, Duneva.
That's the bit I couldn't get. The bit at the end. Thank you for coming on. And we've also got Ian Hodson, the president of the BFAWU, or otherwise known as the Bakers Union. It's much easier that way. How are you, Ian?
I'm all right, mate. How's yourself? Obviously, 10 o'clock close down means I'm sober on a Sunday morning. As probably the rest of the nation is too, eh?
Isn't that fantastic? Have you had any croissant this morning? What do you have as a pastry, as a baker? You know, what would you recommend as a pastry in the morning?
Well, obviously, as much bread as you can possibly eat. You know what I mean? Because obviously, if we're making it, you need to be eating it. Keep all of our people in work.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. It's good that I've had lots of bread. Just so you know.
Just keep toasting, mate.
Yeah, I'm going for the bread big time. Now, we're going to start off our newspaper review with the front page of the Morning Star. Too little, too late. Sunak scheme for jobs lockdown. What's your view on his scheme and what we've had already, Ian?
I mean, obviously, you know, it's a typical situation we find ourselves in at the moment, isn't it? You know, Tories sacrificing jobs. I mean, this scheme that he announced in a rush on Friday to go alongside the lockdowns, and his other scheme that he brought in that pays something like 77%. I mean, most businesses are telling us it's far too complicated, so they're making a decision to make people redundant instead. I think this headline, too little, too late. You know, obviously plays right at the heart of what this actually was, which was a PR stunt. It's not about helping society. It's not about helping working people. It's just about making it appear that they're doing something. I mean, if the government want to do something to help people, and people really do need help, you know, they should be ending the evictions again, making sure that people can't be evicted, making sure that statutory sick pay is paid at a level that people are able to afford to isolate on, and maybe they should have tried UBI to make sure that people had an income coming in. You know, I mean, they've poured absolute billions into a track and trace system, which has failed, which is causing the problems that we're seeing in our society, and yet they could have gone to maybe one of the Asian countries which have been very, very successful in controlling the virus, and maybe borrowed their track and test system, and then maybe they wouldn't have needed to bail out employers, because we'd have had a track and trace system that was the best in the world and kept everybody in work.
Maria, what do you think about his scheme?
It's most definitely too little. I mean, it can't be 80% in March and then 2/3 now. And you've got to look at the difference. If you are on minimum wage, and it's not a living wage, it's minimum wage, and suddenly you go down to 2/3, the difference for you is living on the bread line and poverty. And that's what we're going to see. This isn't acceptable, 2/3. It's not acceptable to workers, and it's not acceptable to communities, because it's all going to suffer. Your local community, if every pound that you spend locally is worth 30 quid by the time it's transversed the system, and you know, we may get a virus, a vaccine for the virus, but we're not going to get a vaccine for climate change. And what I'm not seeing from this government is anything that's saying the way forward is green jobs, a green economy. If only Labour had been listened to on those points at the last election.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, so they're kind of trying to adapt to a way of thinking about the economy that isn't really Tory friendly for them. So that it's not going to work. It's like having the wrong party in at the wrong time. But then this story was in the Observer, and I thought I'd ask you about this, Ian, especially because you've got lots of members who work at Wetherspoons, and you had a campaign earlier this year, didn't you, about Wetherspoons? What's your view on this idea? Wetherspoons, I mean, this is terrifying if Wetherspoons is going to lose. It says here hundreds of pubs, and you know, it's like a.
I mean, listen. I mean, my experience of the Wetherspoons pubs since the lockdown ended and everybody was encouraged to go out to eat out to help out is they've been packed. I mean, I was in Stoke on Friday, and I mean it was absolutely packed. I mean, most of the pubs are struggling, but Wetherspoons seems to be doing quite well. I mean, so I know during the crisis there was a two-tier issue going on where the managers were paid and the workers wasn't. So that might have had an impact on his bank balance, because obviously the government funded his employees. He didn't do it, did he? I mean, so but he did fund his managers. I mean, I was talking to one actually in Barnsley who was telling us how well they were looked after. But then I was talking to the staff who was telling me, you know, what a struggle it was to try and survive on 80% of their already low wages. I mean, so I mean, if he is in trouble, obviously that is a desperate situation for the people that work for him. And obviously, you know, we don't want businesses to collapse. We want businesses to be able to survive this crisis. And you know, if he's looking to find out who's responsible, it's that party that he helped fund. And you know, as an employer, you know, he's been right at the forefront of encouraging people to vote Tory. And you know, any impact on his business, he should fund.
Right. And Maria, do you ever go to Wetherspoons?
I live in Wales, and there is no Wetherspoons near me. What I can tell you is, in our constituency, the vast majority of pubs are owned locally and are freehold. And I want to give a shout out to all the staff and the small owners of those pubs, because the guidelines that they have been given by our Welsh Labour government, they have followed. They have done everything that they could do to make those premises safe for people. Now, what I haven't seen yet is any evidence that says categorically going in pubs has been the cause of the increases. And we need to see that evidence, because people are now starting to question everything and say, we don't know where we are, we don't know what's happened, we don't know who's telling the truth. So in Wales, we have something that is not quite so strict in England, and that is that in in our geographical lockdown restricted areas, we have a rule that says you can't go outside of that area. Now, that is different to England. And what we've seen in Wales is that whereas in England, 19 out of 20 of the lockdown areas have seen increases of cases, what we've seen in Wales is we're starting to reduce the cases. Now, that is the difference that a Labour-led government can make as against a Tory government, because we've been consistent right the way through. We stuck to the same message. We didn't say, stay home, go to work. Stay home, but go to work only if you can, and don't do this, and then yes, you can the next day, which confused people. Mark Drakeford said consistently right the way through, stay home. Stay home at work, and the messages need to be clearer. People need to be told what's going on, and we need to have some evidence. And the particular concern people have got is schools and universities. And we're not hearing enough about that.
Right. Well, look, we'll move on actually to something that touches on what you're saying, which is the front page of the Sunday Mirror about the one lockdown rule for them. You know, it isn't very consistent. The government's lockdown rules are just all over the place. How do you feel, Ian? I mean, because it's not just that's the Sunday Mirror's take, but if you look at what the observers say, it's more about there being a north-south divide on the lockdown rules, and we've heard Andy Burnham spoken about that as well. So, what I mean, you're in Blackpool. What do you think about this? That the government's kind of making it easy for their own areas, but not for those that aren't Labour areas, and even those new red wall seats.
Yeah, I mean, we now have 2 Tory MPs in Blackpool, and what was interesting is when the whole of Lancashire was shut down, it excluded Blackpool, mainly because we were turning on the illuminations, and obviously it was a pretty peak time before obviously the kids went back to school. So we stayed open, and funnily enough, following that, although it's apparently not linked, we saw a massive rise in coronavirus cases in Blackpool. But we can't assume that it had anything to do with people coming in from the Lancashire towns around us that had peaks in at that particular time of COVID themselves. I mean, you know, the decisions that are being taken don't make any sense. I mean, you can go to a pub and you can meet people in a pub, but you couldn't bring people to your house. Now, I'm not being funny. When I was, like I say, I was sat in Stoke. The place was absolutely jumping on Friday night in Stoke. Most of the pubs you see, unfortunately, have closed down. So to find somewhere to go, there's only a couple of pubs open. So they're packed. I mean, but yeah, it's safer for me to go and meet somebody in a pub than it is in my own house. I mean, I don't see the logic. I mean, I don't see how we can exclude the fact that actually, I mean, according to statistics, it suggests 7% of the COVID cases have come from establishments like pubs, whereas 87% is coming from schools, colleges and universities. And yet we want to keep the schools, colleges and universities open. At the same time, we're saying that we have to stop people from socialising. I mean, schools, colleges and universities are places where people are socialising. My other half, she works in a school. I mean, there is no social distancing. Kids don't know how not to play with each other. We can't uneducate people in a school not to associate with one another. The whole thing just doesn't seem right, and I'm not surprised people are confused. I'm not surprised people are concerned. I think you know the failure of government in this to deal with this issue, even though now we've had all of these months to plan and prepare, we are still, you know, going to end up being the worst part of the European Union as we are, with the highest cases and the most confused ways of dealing with it.
Right. I'm going to move on a little bit because Maria, you did speak about Wales having a different situation. What I'd like to talk about now is this story that is again inconsistent. If we're to worry about infection rates, why are they putting the parking fees up in hospitals where people would have to go to? Obviously, with this, it's crazy. What do you think about this, Maria? I mean, how can they justify not keeping parking fees down?
How has anybody ever justified it? I mean, my background is nursing, and 30 years ago, we in the NHS, in our unions, had it at the top of our agenda, is that parking should not be made the responsibility of patients, because at the end of the day, you are not responsible for getting ill. You're not responsible for the fact that you're broken a leg or something. Maybe a slight minority are, but you're not responsible and shouldn't have to pay to go and visit your elderly relatives in hospital. And having contact when you're in hospital is so very important to recovery. So no, it's wrong. I will say yet again, there is no charge for parking in Wales because we have a Labour government.
Really, there's no charge at all?
No.
Oh, that's
it was
fantastic.
scrapped. We scrapped it.
I've always thought it was a tax on disability as well, because disabled people are more likely to be going to hospital than others, and it's like they're saying we're just taking more money away from you. So look, I'm trying to because we've got such a busy show. We're going to move on again to this story, which is in the Sunday Mirror, which I have to say I've been impressed today by their coverage of political stories. It says one arms export license is granted every day to the Saudi government. How on earth have Labour not made this into a big story? What do you think about this one, Ian?
I mean, whenever you see what's happening in Yemen, I mean, it's appalling, isn't it? I mean, we see on our tellies played out, you know, most days, an agenda led by people like Nigel Farage talks about, you know, people coming here, and it's very rare, you know, like you say about, you know, the Labour Party currently, and the media actually covering the reasons why those people are so desperate to seek sanctuary in the UK and other places. I mean, and they are the consequences of war, and it's all about finance, it's all about economics. And you know, that picture there, it just sums up what the consequences of, you know, selling military hardware to a regime that has no morals, you know, that's just about control. I just find it shameful that you know, a country that claims to believe that we all have a right to exist, you know, pours so much into countries and gives them the opportunity to create crisis such as we see in Yemen, and it is British bombs. The blood is on the hands of the British government.
Maria?
I want to stand on doorsteps at the next general election and say exactly as we said in the 2019 election, is that if you believe in peace above conflict and intervention, then you should be voting for us, because that's what we stand for. Now, I think Labour members are years ahead of the rest. And what we're seeing in this article today is everything that we argued against and everything that we said was going to happen coming home to roost. And yes, I'm delighted to see Andy Burnham and the mayors being a real opposition over the past 2 days in the north, but I want to see Labour being a real opposition over war, bombs and nuclear weapons, and it's time that happened. The argument we get back is jobs. Well, let me tell you, nobody knows more about losing jobs than the communities of Wales. and the coal industry. What we did wrong there, and what a decent government would have done, would have been to retrain and re-educate the workforce, to invest in green jobs that actually delivered something to the world. And that's not going to happen with this government. It's only going to happen with a Labour government, and it's only going to happen with a Labour government that listens to its members and listens to the voters. So let's get back out there and tell everyone, no more war.
Well, thank you. That's really that's such a good thing to point out, that we were all so strong on that issue before, and it's quite sad to see that. Now I'm bringing this last story on of this for Ian, because this is in a letter in the Morning Star, which says that people have been saying Labour should welcome opposition from Unite because it gives Starmer an opportunity to break free from the financial grip of the unions and become a party of patriotism, fiscal responsibility and respect for private enterprise. What do you think? I mean, that might well be going a bit far, whatever that person said, but do you think Unite have just said they're going to withdraw 10% of their funding for the Labour Party? Do you think other unions, such as the bakers, are in any way reviewing their position on this? Are the bakers reviewing their situation on this?
We absolutely are, yeah. I mean, and we notified the party around about June that we intended to do it when they moved from 2 meters to 1, when they put all the pressure and stopped defending teachers. I think, you know, the Labour Party has got some serious issues. I mean, I heard Ben Bradshaw talking about Len McCluskey the other day. This is a man that's probably benefited from Unite cash and trade union cash in general. I think those Labour MPs who've been elected in Parliament need to remember that the reasons why they're there is basically because of the trade union and Labour movement. If it wasn't for us, that party wouldn't exist. And if they want to be in a party that represents the values that's expressed in that letter, then they should be in the Conservative Party or maybe the Liberal Party, but they shouldn't be at home in the Labour Party, because the Labour Party was created to represent working class people in our workplaces and in our communities and fight for the things that we need to stop us having to comply with a system that doesn't work for us and build a system that does work and includes all of us. Because we're about inequality, ending inequality, we're about justice, and we're about fairness, and we're about building a society that enables us to all thrive and prosper. And if that's not the Labour Party, and if that's not the Labour Party that Keir Starmer wants to lead, then what he's going to find is that the trade unions will make decisions that will impact on him. But if he thinks he's going to replace that money by bringing in private corporations, then they'll have a fight in every community, in every conference, you know, and it's not going to help build a movement that we all need to see. It's going to divide us and continue that war that's happening inside the Labour Party. What we all need is we all need to move together and recognise it's our duty. It's our duty as a Labour movement to build a society that works for everybody. And I do think the Labour Party needs to make a decision in which direction it's going. And I do think it's right that the trade unions are considering their position too. I don't think it's right that we have Labour MPs appearing on telly and taking Tory media attack lines like calling us barons. I mean, you know, that is not what we are in the trade unions. We are elected representatives, whichever position that we hold, and they should know that, because they've been part of putting in legislation to make us the most restrictive way that we operate in any European country. So I mean, you know, for Labour politicians and leading Labour politicians, not to come out and condemn what Ben Bradshaw said, not to come out and support trade unions this week with some of the attacks. I mean, I've been called a traitor to the Labour movement. A traitor to the Labour movement? I don't believe I'm a traitor to the Labour movement. Do I believe my union is a traitor to the Labour movement for considering whether or not we should use our members' money to fund a party that won't make a decision on whether we should protect human rights? Do I think it's wrong that we should consider whether it's not to support a party that's not prepared to say it's wrong to allow the state to murder us? Do I think it's wrong, for a party not to make a decision about people's lives that were impacted because they ended up marrying people, thinking that they were the same as them when they were actually working for the state? Do we think that that's right, that a Labour Party has no position on those issues, and that it thinks it's right when we're facing a jobs absolute sacrifice because of the measures that's been taken by the Tory party over the furlough scheme, its failure to protect people who could be losing their homes by not ending the eviction ban? If the Labour Party doesn't see that as a need to oppose, then it's right that as working class organisations, we consider whether that's the best value for our members' money. So, interesting letter.
That's a good answer, a long answer. Now, I'm going to have to move on. So thank you both for coming on. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
And Ian, we've got some light-hearted stuff now. So what I thought is, to start with, I thought I'd bring in Suzy. You've met Ian, haven't you, Suzy?
Yeah.
You met him in Weston-super-Mare. I remember that you did that show there. Have you got a message for Ian?
Ian, your hair is looking spectacular as always. He's got the best head of hair. And obviously what he says is true and righteous. But I just can't stop. He's got breathtaking hair. Breathtaking.
And we're going to bring in Patrick as well. Patrick, are you there, Patrick?
I certainly am. Good morning, Crispin. Good morning, everyone.
You look tired again, Patrick. Did you go do another gig last night?
Yeah, I was doing another gig. I was in Workington last night in Mark's garden. I drove all the way up there. Mark didn't know I was there. It took me about 2 hours to dig into his garden, did a setup, and it was absolutely fantastic until the police came. Mark's fault, rang the police. No, I was doing a gig, but it was only local.
Oh, okay. But you had a look. We've got 3 stories for you to talk about. They're not as funny as some of the ones that we've had in earlier weeks, but I thought I'd ask first. How do you deal with your dirty laundry, Patrick? Do you clean out your filter?
Well, I didn't even when I saw this, I didn't even know what a filter was or a tumble dryer. I'm old school, and I don't know if anyone remembers these, but we've still got an iron wringer. You know them things where you just you put the clothes through and you just wring it. You just turn it like that. Very good for the environment. It's absolutely fantastic. Now, the other thing I would say is don't waste £600 on a filter and don't waste £300 trying to buy, like a dryer. Someone's just said it, a mangle. Mark knows what I mean. A mangle. Get a mangle like that. But also, instead of wasting any money on any dryers, what you do is just hang it on a washing line in the garden and let the sun dry it. Now, I know some people, listen, we didn't have a garden. So what I do is I'll just walk past the garden that has got washing already on a washing line, and then I'll just borrow the clothes that I like the look of. And then that way it's better for the environment. That way we're recycling, because you see these washing lines where people have got loads of clothes and you think, they're not going to wear all of them this week. I'll wear them and I'll bring them back next week for them.
So you steal clothes, right? Okay, so Don, are you there, Don?
Hi, Crispin. Hello, everyone.
Don, do you do your washing?
Yeah, I do my washing, but what's the point of a tumble dryer, energy saving or not? We're in the midst of a global pandemic where most people are unemployed. We can just leave our clothes in the washing machine and eventually it will dry. And also, Crispin, I've done a little bit of research into this and investigative journalism. The only reason why you got this news story is because you got shares in high energy tumble dryers. So you purposely put this news story out there so you get us to buy a high energy tumble dryer in the midst of pandemic. Well done, Crispin. We need to investigate this.
Oh, right. Yeah, I'm not a conspiracy theorist then. All right. So, Suzy, do you do your washing, or do you leave it to your mum to do it?
Oh, I'm 44 years old. Of course I do my washing. When Patrick was talking about the mangle earlier, it reminded me when I was in my first flat when I was 18, I had one of those spinners that looks like R2-D2 that used to sit on the floor. and you used to put your clothes in to spin it out, and you'd have to put a bowl underneath the spout to catch the water. And this was so powerful, it would be like it was about to take off, and it would be shaking, and sometimes it would hop across the floor and all the water would be coming out on my kitchen floor. So those were the days of the struggle. But yeah, just hang it up, innit?
Oh, okay.
Just hang it up. And can I say, people in Plymouth, we sometimes don't pronounce our L's, so people call it tumbo dryer. And recently on Plymouth Marketplace on Facebook, someone was selling a tumble dryer, and they spelt it T-U-M-B-O-W, tumbo dryer for sale. Absolute gold. Absolute gold. Gold. G-O-W-D.
Right, moving on to this one. Missing cats owners went to Denmark. Now, I find it unbelievable that someone could forget their cat and move to Denmark, and then they say, "Oh yeah, thanks for reminding us about our cat." Have you ever left anything and gone miles away and forgotten about it, Patrick?
Yeah, 3 kids, a couple of grandparents, mortgage payments, everything, you know, them sort of things. But I do it, you know, accidentally, you know. This was the interesting thing about this, because as we've got like a lovely little, and there's a lot of people that can relate who've got pets. This is the most ridiculous thing ever. I mean, your cat was electronically tagged. How can you not find your cat? I mean, these people found the cat. I understand. Look, as a dog owner, I understand what it's like. Because these people, I understand why they left it. Because if your cat has been electronically tagged, it's obviously been a criminal. It's probably broken a record. You don't want to look after it. Let the state look after it. They've just said, listen, let someone else have it, and they've gone off to Denmark. I think the issue here is that, you know, don't get a cat, get a dog. It's better. I think that's.
Don, what about you? Have you ever had a cat?
I've had no pets whatsoever, but I'd like to say one thing in the article. It says he's already got a pet passport and unable to go back to Denmark. This cat has got a greater movement across Europe, freedom of movement, than any British person will ever have in the future. So it's insane. And also, I want to know, I was thinking of going on holiday to Denmark. This article should say, if the cat gets into Denmark, will it able to quarantine for 14 days? So that's another thing I'd like to know. But in Indian culture, I come from an overbearing Indian family. We don't microchip our pets. We microchip our children, just so they won't run away where they always are.
That's a good one. And Susie, have you got a cat?
I used to have 2 black cats called Sooty and Sweet when I was little. And they lived to a ripe old age, and then they disappeared off into the field, in the field of dreams. But now I've got my Dumbo. And reading that article, it made me realise, should I get a passport for Dumbo? Because he's like my best friend, and he's been my friend for 44 years. I can't believe pets have got passports these days. I mean, this is like very middle-class problems going on today. Tumble dryers, pets with passports. I mean, it's a whole new world open to me.
Yeah, well, I'm ashamed that I even brought these stories up now. I think we're going to have to move on because we've got so much on this show, and I'm trying to be disciplined about timekeeping. So we were going to do another story, but thank you all for coming on.
Thank you.
And see you on Wednesday.
Can I just say, everyone, I'm currently enjoying Yorkshire tea, toast and jam, which is currently on offer in Asda for £1.50, and it tastes like jam on toast. So get yourself to Asda, but don't do what they say on the packet. Don't pour the tea into the toaster. That's not a serving suggestion. So just £1.50 in Asda.
Oh, thank you for all that advertising again. You won't stop, will you?
Influencer.
Now we're going to bring on Andrea, who is a Labour activist in South London and in Putney, I think, and she's set up this petition that's on Change UK, which reminds people that the government stated every rough sleeper would come off the street, but it hasn't happened. And she's trying to push this through, and she's in a campaign on this. Are you there, Andrea?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah. You want to tell us about the campaign and the group that you're in the Labour Party against, and what you're doing as well? Because you told me that you've uncovered loads of empty properties in London.
Yeah. So, hi everyone, I'm Andrea Gilbert, I'm from Putney CLP, and I'm also on the admin team for the Labour homelessness campaign. We were set up in 2018, and we're basically a group that wants to be made redundant, obviously, by getting everybody housed. So I'm going to pretty much explain about COVID this year, and then I can explain about the other campaigns that we've done. So from the 23rd of March this year, we had to get all of the rough sleepers off the street, basically. The government estimated that there was over 5,000 people that were rough sleeping. Well, fast forward to 2020, there's over 15,000 people that are rough sleeping. So we managed to get all of these people in. Hotels were funded by Sadiq Khan in London. So we got 3,000 people into hotels. I worked in the Wandsworth Hotel, which was brilliant, had a really good experience. And the people were obviously treated great and fantastic. But then there were some people that were left on the streets as well. So not everybody made it in. So there were prisoners that were released early. There were people from detention centres that were also released early as well. So, you know, throughout the whole pandemic, really, we've had a really big, large quantity of people coming into the hotels and getting the support that they need, which is fantastic. We've also uncovered that during this time period, that there's an estimated 200 and 1,600,000 empty homes in the UK, and there's 16,000 people that were rough sleeping. So we did a walking tour in Hackney, where one of the apartments there, one of the new developments, are just literally sitting there empty while there's rough sleeping going on. It's absolutely ridiculous what's going on. We've also got issues with those on no recourse to public funds as well. So in the UK, there's over 1 million people that are on this draconian policy, man. It's absolutely disgraceful. They're not able to apply for benefits. They're not able to get jobs. They're not able to get housing either. So where I am in Wandsworth, we've had a lot of people in this predicament, and it is difficult supporting them because, you know, there's just no services available to them unless you get a grassroots group that, you know, in particular provide services towards them. So you've also got women fleeing domestic violence. So last year, the stats were 1.3 women were in domestic violence relationships. And men as well, 650,000,
1.3 million
yeah,
women were in domestic violence. Right.
yeah.
Okay.
So it's absolutely ridiculous. Since 2010, 1 in 6 refuges have been closed. So there's women that are getting refused, you know, support getting into fleeing from their homes.
So can I just butt in, because we might have not much time,
Yeah.
but I just want to can you tell people how they can support your campaign, because it's really great that you're making this initiative about homelessness. I'm afraid to say I don't really hear it from the Labour Party front bench.
Oh, no, you don't.
But to see that there are activists like you on the ground who are actually pointing out all these facts and figures, got all the information and putting this all together, if we all get behind you, then we might actually be able to get some people on the front bench to take it up. So do you want to point people in the direction of where they can support you?
Well, I've got the petition. I can share the link of the petition, and you can also follow us on Facebook as well and on Twitter. So we're called the Labour Homelessness Campaign. Right.
And so will you come back on the show again to
of course
keep
I
us
will.
up?
Of course, I can keep
on all
you
this.
updates.
That's fantastic. Thank you for coming on.
No problem.
And we'll catch up with you soon.
Thanks a lot. Take care, Crispin.
Cheers. Right, I'm now going to introduce a new another guest on the show who works a lot. He doesn't work a lot. He's been going to Speaker's Corner since 1986. Now I don't know if anyone's been to Speaker's Corner, but I've got a short clip here of him in operation at Speaker's Corner in Hyde Park in London.
One of the first demands that we should make, and this should appeal to you too, is that there be a guarantee that nobody who is an EU citizen who lives here now will be thrown out or treated differently than a British citizen after Brexit.
If they're a criminal,
Support that? Jeremy Corbyn would have had that. Angela Merkel had no. He stated so explicitly. Do you not support what I've just said? No. Do you not support what I just said?
What if they're a criminal?
Do you not support? I will support that, Heiko. I'll support it. Do you not support what I just said?
Heiko, are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me all right? Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
I can hear me now. You can hear me now?
I can hear you now, yeah.
Yeah. So I muted
Am I
myself.
loud enough?
I think I got caught up in the hullabaloo of that Hyde Park Speaker's Corner. How long have you been doing this since 1986?
Yeah, funnily enough, a couple of people on that video have literally been there heckling me since 1986. One of the last guys there, a very tall guy called Matthew Palmer. He was a Conservative Party councillor in Kensington and Chelsea actually recently, and he's been sort of, he was in the Monday Club years back, you know, and heckled me when they had a gang of them used to come down in 1986 and literally heckle and harass you all the time. But it trains you up to respond to things, so that was really nice, you know, in a way.
And what's the history of Speaker's Corner? I'm not actually familiar, but I remember there's people like Donald Soper were famously...
Soper was a tremendous speaker, yeah. He was a tremendous... Soper spoke there since 1940, but he started speaking in... And he died in 1998 and literally spoke until a few weeks before he died. And but he spoke at Tower Hill from 1926. And Speaker's Corner has been around since the struggle of the Reform League in 1866 to get the right to vote for men. And in 1866 and 67, there were big riots and upheavals in Hyde Park to get access to the park, to have meetings to demand the right to vote. And in 1872, they legalized the right to speak in the park, basically.
And what have you noticed since you were there in, started in 1986? What kind of people are speaking? What are the, because I have been there a couple of times, and there are a lot of religious speakers seem to be talking there, but also there seem to be people who are kind of what you call conspiracy theorists. Is that something that you've noticed more of? What's your view on the kind of people there now?
You've always had a wide variety of speakers. It did shift more towards Arab and Muslim beliefs, which perhaps when I first started speaking was a bit rarer. It tended to be a bit more Palestinian or issues like that from the point of view of the Arab community. But there was an increase in the number of Muslim speakers. There was a decrease in the number of political speakers. But it does always change. I mean, there are some people who go there all the time religiously, as you might say, like myself. I speak on a Marxist platform in general, but I've been a member of the Labour Party pretty much on and off all the years. And there used to be some Socialist Party of Great Britain. They had a prolific presence at Speaker's Corner since 1900 until about 5 or 6 years ago when they stopped it. Some of their old boys died out basically, and then they stopped being there, But conspiracy theories have always existed in Hyde Park. I mean, if you've got a view on something, you're going to go down there and express it, and if you believe it strongly enough, it'll motivate you to do so.
Okay, Carol, just a side point is that Carol just made a point on chat about Tommy Robinson. I mean, are there more right-wing kind of fascist types down there at the moment, or?
Yeah, I got up and spoke when Tommy Robinson came down there, and they dragged me off my platform and attacked me. But otherwise, there have been some people who come down there who are sort of provocateurs on behalf of the far right. They have diminished in number recently, and not all of them, of course, are actually far right. Some of them just joining the fray. So You know, nowadays it's not that bad. There are some far right people there, but not aggressive or violent. They'll argue their case, and you know, that's pretty much it.
Right. I mean, the other thing that I noticed about your speeches, I've seen some of this stuff on your Facebook page and on YouTube, is that you at the beginning of the COVID-19 were a very strong supporter of lockdown and of making more regulation, because you didn't see the government doing that at all at the beginning in March and maybe February as well. I don't know.
No, on the 8th of March or the 9th of March, I spoke at Speaker's Corner and basically called for an immediate lockdown. We did release a video through Double Down Media as well, calling for an immediate lockdown. And at that time, I mean, I think it's a reasonable argument that at that time, I mean, I was arguing for a 3-week lockdown because the incubation period was 2 weeks. At that time, it might have worked. After a while, I began to investigate, particularly the debates in Germany in the scientific community, and I have actually changed my mind. I no longer believe lockdown should exist at all, actually.
Right. Well, that's a pretty controversial opinion. It's almost that is COVID-19. Do you think it's a? I think you had a video saying that there was some kind of censorship on that at Speaker's Corner, that you can't speak in certain ways about. Do you think there's a censorship on this?
There isn't a censorship at Speaker's Corner itself, but Speaker's Corner has a video channel which has quite a lot of subscribers. And I produced a video last week, for example, which was an interview with one of the most highly respected microbiologists and immunologists, infection immunologists in the world. His name is Sukarit Bhakti, and he's totally non-political. He's just arguing on the scientific questions. And when they tried to put it out on their channel, they received an email from YouTube saying, this is against community guidelines because it disagrees with what the WHO says and what your local authority governments say about COVID-19, which is, to be honest with you, is insane.
Do you think there are more people like you who think lockdown should be changed, finished?
Well, there are very few people who have really gone through all or a lot of the evidence on the question, who haven't taken sides on issues in such a way, just like Brexit, you know, become one side or the other. You know, you can't have an in-between. You can't have people who are against lockdown who aren't conspiracy theorists. You can't have people who, you know, nowadays the mask wearing becomes some kind of almost religious affinity. And I think all that's wrong. I mean, I'm going to stick my neck out now because we've got a date and time to this. I don't believe there is going to be a significant rise in deaths from COVID-19. I think the arguments that the test itself is fundamentally flawed is correct. I don't think we should rush out a vaccine. No vaccine's ever been rushed out. It's foolish, and it's not tested on the people who are the target test group. You know, there are multiple issues, and I've looked into them as well as I can. I always present the evidence I can. I look at the documents. I could be wrong, but you know, I have a training in research, so it's not like madness. But there are also people who disagree. You know, the problem is that it's become a sort of monolithic viewpoint now, that you're either in favour of measures and distancing and all these sort of things, or you're a conspiracy theorist. And you know, I think that's totally wrong. And people should be able to change their minds and say. And the problem now is, even if, I mean, no matter what happens, it's very difficult to reverse what's happened. And that includes, you know, massive changes in the economic structure of society that are detrimental to the mass of people. And at this point, we now already have, I believe, worldwide, far more collateral damage from the measures taken supposedly to stop COVID than the disease itself.
Well, I'm wary of going too far into this because.
Well, I'm saying the worldwide. You know, the UN has said 140 million people have been driven into the point of starvation. Now that's astronomical. You know.
Okay.
But of course, I understand if people don't agree with that. I mean, you know, I'm quite vociferous in what I advocate. So I advocated vociferously for lockdown. You know, And it's the way
Well,
I talk that I'll do the opposite now.
I think it's interesting that you were in support of lockdown and you've changed your mind. So we've got to move on, but I'd just like to thank you for coming on. And if anyone wants to watch your speaking at Hyde Park, they can see it on your Facebook page or
YouTube, Heiko Khoo, or the COE channel, Content Over Everything channel,
Or you could go down there and watch you live.
Sunday afternoon, or the radio show every Wednesday, 3 o'clock, Resonance FM.
All right, thank you, Heiko.
Thanks very much.
I'm going to move on to our big final today, which is the obviously it's the final of the Clash of the CLPs, as you all know. We have the last questions for our two contestants. They've been through weeks and weeks of training to get all the information about the Labour Party. They've looked up every black and white picture of a Labour politician. Kevin, are you there?
I am, yes.
And Glenn, Kevin is from Liverpool Wavertree. Well done for making the final. And Glenn is from Southeast Cornwall. You there,
hello?
Glenn?
Yep, hello.
Are you all primed and ready for this?
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll start off. We're running a bit late, so I'm going to quickly start. We'll move straight into the picture round. Now, I want you to name who this former Labour MP is from the Attlee administration. Do you want a clue?
Yes, please.
He became a TV presenter later on in the early 60s, maybe late 50s, early 60s. He was an interviewer on a program called Face to Face. And he famously made Tony Hancock cry.
I always thought that was Sid James who did that.
That would have been funny if he had.
Yeah. Oh dear.
No?
No,
no.
Sorry, it's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't.
His name's John Freeman.
Right, a New Statesman man, wasn't he? Yeah.
Now, that's another aspect of his. Right, now here's the second one. Now, are you ready for this? Who is this Labour MP?
Margaret Beckett.
Margaret Beckett.
All right, Kevin got it first. Kevin got it. Right, so Liverpool won. Southeast Cornwall. Where could I say you're from, Glenn? Southeast Cornwall's a bit of a tongue.
Liskeard.
Liskeard, right, okay. Liverpool, it's good that. Liverpool won, Liskeard 0. Right. Now, I'm going to ask you questions now without pictures. I want you to name who is, first to call out wins. You can answer more than once, but it won't help you because the other person will probably pick it up. Who is Labour's longest serving Foreign Secretary?
Oh God.
Glenn?
Bevin.
Who said that?
Kevin.
Kevin Bevin. Kevin said Bevin. Kevin, you're right. It was Bevin. He was Foreign Secretary for 5 years, 7 months. The next one was Jack Straw, 4 years, 11 months. 2-0 to Liverpool. Come on, Glenn. Come on, Liskeard. Come on.
I'll try.
I'll let you have the first go on this one. Which union has the largest number of members? The Royal College of Nursing or USDOR?
I'll go for Royal College of Nursing.
Right, and that Kevin?
I'll do the same.
Oh, Kevin, why can't you be different and go contrary? Right, that one's a tie because it is the Royal College of Nursing. So I'm sorry, I can't give you that. But I want to do the final question. Is this is worth 3 points if you get it? So that means you can win if you get it, Glenn. Right?
Yeah.
It's not all over. It's worth 3 points. Liverpool got 2 points at the moment. How many? There were 8 members of the Labour Party who left to join Change UK. How many of those MPs can you name? I'll start off with Kevin because he's leading. How many can you name out of 8?
Okay, Luciana Berger.
No. So give me a number that you can. You have to bid. Give me your number. Can you do 8 or 7 or what?
I'll go for 5.
5. How many can you do, Glenn?
I don't. 4.
Oh, you come on, Glenn. You can try and outbid him.
I don't think I could name 5. I go for 4.
Well, Glenn, I mean, I'm not sure I could name 5. I just went for a number which sounded good.
It's so uncompetitive. It's like so Labour non-competitive. like okay, look, Kevin, you'll win if you get 5. Okay, you win. You become the champion of Clash of the
Right. Well, I'm not sure I can do it. Gonna have a go first. See if we can get them.
All right, Glenn,
I'm happy for Kevin to go first. Name his 5.
This is not how you do it.
Crispin, this is what socialism would be like. It'd be very polite.
Okay, do you want to try, Kevin?
Yeah, okay. Luciana Berger, Mike
Start
Gates.
off at home. Yeah, go on, Mike Gates.
Yeah. Somebody's just said in the chat, by the way, is this 2 bald men fighting over a comb? Well done. Yeah. So Luciana Berger, Mike Gates, Chuka Amuna.
Yeah, 3.
Oh God, there's that woman in Yorkshire, Anne from Penistone, and then another one from Stockport. Sorry, I'm running down now. Now you see, I've only managed 3. I told you I was overbidding.
What? If you can't think of another? This could be the crux of it, Glenn.
Yeah.
Glenn, if you.
Well, I told you the recent past is a problem with me.
I know people are writing it in the chat. That's not fair.
No, I'm not looking. No, just leave it at that.
I'll leave it. I think because of the chat, people doing in the chat. I don't think it's fair to.
Yeah, I've not looked at.
I'll let you know who the others are. Anne Coffey, Chris Leslie. He's quite a famous one.
Yeah.
Joan Ryan. She's obviously. Look into your hands. Remember her?
Yeah.
It's in your hands. Angela Smith with a tinge. Gavin Shuker. He's an unknown to me, but he's
yeah.
So that's the 8. Now the winner of Clash of the CLPs this season, is Liverpool Wavertree. Congratulations, Kevin. Your trophy will be sent by courier. Thank you very much, Glenn, for taking part. You've been great from the start.
That's okay.
I'm now going to move on to our musical maestro, Rob.
Hello.
Oh, whoops.
Morning.
So, Rob, you've written a song for us today called "When the Leaves Have All Fallen."
Yeah, it's a bit bleak. And I suppose it fits in the discussion we've had about the pandemic and the responses to the pandemic. So I was someone sent me a couple of talking heads in studios, sort of nattering on about how what I find is that we seem to be forgetting that, almost becoming desensitized the fact that people, it's real people who become ill and whose lives are affected by it. And you get all these talking heads just chatting statistics. And you know that the people talking about calling everything into question, they're not likely to get infected. They're sitting in a safe little studio somewhere, whereas it's nurses and teachers and people who live in economic poor circumstances. They're the ones who are going to get ill. They're the ones who are going to suffer. And this bloke was saying, well, why should we protect the NHS? It's like having a sofa and you keep the plastic on it. And I'm thinking, well, that's kind of a nice furniture analogy, but actually protecting the NHS means protecting the lives of people who work in the NHS. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So I find the kind of dehumanisation, the compassion fatigue that's coming with that's arriving at the moment is sad. And so this is a sad song about a sad time. So maybe everybody should go and have lunch now.
When it was summer, what did we do? We went to the seaside like you said we could do, for the old kiss me quick and the new squeeze me dry. And then we got sick and the sun said goodbye, and the leaves started falling, and the leaves started falling, and the numbers kept rising. When it was summer, what did you do? You and your chums went on holiday too. Now it's 6 rules for us and 1 rule for you, and everyone knows you don't know what to do. The leaves started falling, and the leaves started falling, and the numbers kept rising. The numbers keep rising. Oh, how the smart chatter, the ones not the nurses, the ones not the teachers, not the ones who'll die first. Though we drink and we drink, we can't drink our way out. Though we think and we think, we can't think our way out. The leaves started falling, and the leaves started falling, and the numbers kept rising. The numbers kept rising. Now we're sick to the back teeth, we just want it over. Dear Father Christmas, please make it all better. But the economy comes first, and there's work to be done. And if you can't work, well, you'll have to retrain, 'cause you've all had your fun. Back to work, children, you've had all your fun. And it won't be the smart mouths that talk us all through when the leaves have all fallen. It's just